Of all the notable American poets of the 19th century, maybe none have seen their work curdle over time as much as John Greenleaf Whittier. The parochialism, moralism, sentimentality, and gnarled homeliness that made him very, very famous during his life, it limits his work's ability to rise above all of that, to become sustainable art. He was a very successful poet in his time. He was a core member of the so-called fireside or schoolroom poets. He came from a rural childhood, had very little schooling, but he became a newspaper editor and became an apprentice or protege of William Lloyd Garrison, entered the abolitionist movement, writing for a number of reform papers, primarily about abolition of slavery, right, also about temperance and other issues in that. And over time, his facility with rhyming led him to some success as a poet, and he was able to parlay that into a nice poetic career, but always a very socially conscious one. He was in and out of politics. He served, I believe, one term in the Massachusetts State Assembly. He was a Quaker. He was always very involved in protest movements, wrote a lot of protest poetry, very active against the Mexican War, abolition, of course, and the Civil War. The treatment, some of his later poetry concerned treatment of the Native Americans, the American Indian conflicts in the West, and he carved out an identity for himself that was quite unique and is worth considering for its time. He was notably supportive as well of women writers. Curiously, that tradition of social justice extended into that, which is very rare for his time. He was particularly supportive of his fellow New Englander, Sarah Orne Jewett. She was from southern Maine and wrote local color stories about hard scrabble downeasters. He was from northern Massachusetts and wrote local color poems about hard scrabble New Englanders. You can see the affinity there, but he supported her in her career and she dedicated some of her work to him. She was very publicly appreciative of him. So he bears some considerable recognition for all these purposes. As a poet, he's working more in the bardic tradition. He was very early inspired by Robert Burns, the Scottish romanticist, who loved a good gnarly story of rural, real earth, unsophisticated people. But also he loved a good full-throated ballad as well, that swelling romantic call of the common folk in the bar and the tavern, let's say. And that spirit does live in Whittier's work. Not really the tavern. He was a Quaker. He was very, very modest in his habits, almost reclusive at times. But he was a very public man. He lived out his later life as a kind of public celebrity. His work was selling very well, and his birthday was considered a local holiday throughout New England. Famously, it was Mark Twain who put his foot in his mouth during a birthday celebration of Whittier. And he did write some very good work in that time. The post-war poem "Snowbound" is I think quite notable. It's really quite good. So he did have that in his register. But at the same time, a lot of his other poems, a lot of his more popular and famous, and some critics would say some of his better poems, they just don't sing today. They're clanky. And all of those aspects, sort of a repository of what is bad in that mid-century world of American letters. The first that comes to mind is a political poem. It is a protest poem. It is a reaction to Daniel Webster, fellow New Englander. Webster was a difficult figure for him because Webster was all about keeping the Union together. And so when he came out and supported the fugitive slave law of 1850, massive outrage ripped through New England, and particularly in the abolitionist community. And Whittier chimed in on that with a poem called Ichabod. Ichabod is it's a reference to the Old Testament, so you can see the moralism coming in here, the Quaker background of religiosity and stridency. The idea that he is alluding to here is a kind of notion of glory that has faded, and it storms against Webster in high dudgeon and all of that, and it's just a bit overwrought, quite frankly. So fallen, so lost, the light withdrawn which once he wore, the glory from his gray hairs gone forevermore. Revile him not, the tempter hath a snare for all, and pitying tears, not scorn and wrath, befit his fall. Oh, dumb be passion's stormy rage, when he who might have lighted up and led his age falls back in night. Scorn! Would the angels laugh to mark a bright soul driven, fiend goaded down the endless dark from hope and heaven. Let not the land once proud of him insult him now, nor brand with deeper shame his dim, dishonored brow. But let his humbled sons instead from sea to lake a long lament as from the dead in sadness make. But let its humbled sons instead from sea to lake a long lament as for the dead in sadness make. Of all we loved and honored, naught save power remains, a fallen angel's pride of thought still strong in chains. All else is gone from those great eyes, the soul has fled. When faith is lost, when honor dies, the man is dead. Then pay the reverence of old days to his dead fame, walk backward with averted gaze, and hide the shame. Very moralistic. Not a lot. If you just reflect back, there aren't a lot of lines that really land, that really stay with you. It is an expression of full-throated outrage. Okay, but it's difficult to shift out of that political mode, though, and have something really last beyond that on an artistic level. There is a lot of clear outrage here, a lot of clear passion. Certainly a full storm of righteousness behind this, which I don't know about that personally as a merit of, or as a gauge of merit for art, but there is nothing really sticks. There are some clunky lines in here. The meter is a little choppy. The diction is a little bit strange. Forevermore. Come on, even at the time, that was a little hokey and clunky then. You can't do that, quite frankly, after Poe, but it's just, it is too serious. And the censoriousness of it, especially in those expostulations at the very beginning. So fallen, revile, and then you go, okay, fine, maybe that's passed over. And so they go a stanza without one, but then coming back, scorn, all these exclamation points. It's just too much. After that, the let not the land once proud of him insult him now, nor brand with deeper shame his dim, dishonored brow. That for some reason that hymn repeats from one line to the other, and that just seems wrong. There's something flat about that. The one line that I would say, not bad. All else is gone from those great eyes, the soul has fled. When life is lost, when honor dies, the man is dead. It's got that hallmarky quality that the fireside poets were particularly adept at. So there you can see a little something there, but otherwise it's not really making it there. The core of his identity is, however, in this small town, rural New England milieu, and a sentimental romantic haze cast over all of that. An interesting portrait of that. While at the same time, admittedly, there is a little bit of conflict in there. You get a sense of some artistic tension going on in the poem known as Maud Muller, which has very simple couplets, kind of a dog trot feel, heavily moralizing, heavily sentimentalizing, probably more than moralizing, honestly, but and a kind of fairy tale setting that is it is hard to. It's hard to really sift through and find stuff that's really going to resonate today. Maud Muller on a summer's day raked the meadows sweet with hay. Beneath her torn hat glowed the wealth of simple beauty and rustic health. Singing she wrought, and her merry glee the mock-bird echoed from his tree. But when she glanced to the far-off town, white from its hill slope looking down, the sweet song died, and a vague unrest and a nameless longing tilled her breast. A wish that she hardly dared to own for something better than she had known. The judge rode slowly down the lane, smoothing his horse's chestnut mane. He drew his bridle in the shade of the apple trees to greet the maid, and asked a draught from the spring that flowed through the meadow across the road. She stooped where the cool spring bubbled up, and filled for him her small tin cup, and blushed as she gave it, looking down, and on her feet so bare, on her tattered gown. "Thanks," said the judge, "no sweeter draught from a fairer hand was ever quaffed." He spoke of the grass, and the flowers and trees, of the singing birds and the humming bees. Then talked of the haying, and wondered whether the cloud of the west could bring foul weather. And Maud forgot her brier-torn gown, and her graceful ankles bare and brown, and listened, while a pleased surprise looked down from her long-lashed hazel eyes. At last, like one who for delay seeks a vain excuse, he rode away. Maud Muller looked and sighed, "Ah me, that I the judge's bride might be! He would dress me up in silk so fine, and praise and toast me at his wine. My father should wear a broadcloth coat, my brother should sail a painted boat. I'd dress my mother so grand and gay, and baby should have a new toy each day. And I'd feel the hungry and clothe the poor, and all should bless me who left our door." The judge looked back as he climbed the hill, and saw Maud Muller standing still. A form more fair, a face more sweet, ne'er hath it been my lot to meet. And her modest answer and graceful air show her wise and good as she is fair. Would she were mine, and I today, like her, a harvester of hay. No doubtful balance of rights and wrongs, nor weary lawyers with endless tongues, but low of cattle and song of birds, and health and quiet and loving words. But he thought of his sisters proud and cold, and his mother vain of her rank and gold. So closing his heart, the judge rode on, and Maud was left in the field alone. But the lawyer smiled that afternoon when he hummed in court an old love tune. And the young girl mused beside the well till the rain on the unraked clover fell. He wedded a wife of richest dower, who lived for fashion as he for power. Yet oft in his marble hearth's bright glow he watched a picture come and go. Then sweet Maud Muller's hazel eyes looked out in her innocent surprise. Oft, when the wine in his glass was red, he longed for the wayside well instead, and closed his eyes on his furnished rooms to dream of meadows and clover blooms. And the proud man sighed with secret pain, "Ah, that I were free again!" Free as when I rode the day that where the barefoot maiden raked the hay. He wedded a man, she wedded a man unlearned and poor, and many children played round her door. But care and sorrow and childbirth pain left their traces on heart and brain. And oft, when the summer sun shone hot on the new mown hay in the meadow lot, and she heard the little spring brook fall over the roadside through the wall, in the shade of the apple tree again she saw a rider draw his rein, and gazing down with timid grace, she felt his pleased eyes read her face. Sometimes her narrow kitchen walls stretched away into stately halls, the weary wheel to a spinnet turned, the tallow candle an astral burned, and for him who sat by the chimney lug, dozing and grumbling over pipe and mug, a manly form at her side she saw, and chat and joy was duty, and love was law. Then she took up her burden of life again, saying only it might have been. Alas for maiden, alas for judge, the rich repiner and household drudge. God pity both of them, and pity us all, who vainly the dreams of youth recall. For all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Ah well, for us all, some sweet hope lies deeply buried from human eyes, and in the hereafter angels may roll the stone from its grave away. Oof. Okay. Very fairy tale feel here. There is a little balancing between the two. This cute little love story, the little rural farm girl who dreams of finery and opulence, and the judge, the educated, sophisticated, ambitious man. There's maybe a little gender issue going on there, but the fairy tale of them meeting, and the nondescript locale where she can look up the hill at the civilized place where the judge is from, the city on a hill. It's just one cliche after another. Quite frankly, the one thing that I would say is kind of interesting is how the farm girl, the innocent farm girl, dreams of wealth, does dream, and there is this sense of, okay, just like the judge dreams of going away from his sophisticated life and living a rough-hewn, simpler life somewhere, she dreams as well of the other. The grass is always greener. It's very easy to see the basic themes here. And that line, a form more fair, a face more sweet, ne'er hath it been my lot to meet. Oh, God, that is just direct. The some of it gathers some speed. But the only line, honestly, that rings clear out of all this is that one little, again, sort of like Hallmark card moment. For all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Painfully sentimental and saccharine, but there is a certain clarity to it. There is a certain easy, spirited rhythm that the words actually ring, the words actually land. But then that is over so quick, because you get to that next little couplet. Ah, well, for us all, some sweet hope lies deeply buried from human eyes. And there, ah, well, for us, some hope. The rhythm is totally gone. The meter is totally gone. And the sense of it is just destroyed. So that ringing of that third couplet from the end is just totally trashed right there. And it's a sad thing. And a lot of his work has this character. A lot of his work has this quality. Some of it reaches some levels. Telling of the Bees, Massachusetts to or Virginia to Massachusetts to Virginia. Not bad. It's got some elements. A lot of his protest poetry does sort of sink under the weight of its fiery condemnation, which is the cardinal sin, I would say, of protest poetry, protest art broadly. It sinks into propaganda all too quickly, and it becomes a kind of intolerance that prioritizes the message over the form. And I'm sorry, but poetry, art is also about form. The content, well, it's a junior partner in that exchange, and Whittier's work suffers for that as it works its way through posterity, and you just can't get over that. Snowbound is a genuinely good poem. There are some really good individual lines within just about all of his work, but it is ultimately, like a lot of the sentimentality of those best-selling artists who primarily found their form before the Civil War, it's dead.